Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a place where you can be still. Let the weight of your body be fully received by the earth, by the chair, by the bed beneath you. There is no need to listen with effort. Allow these words to arrive like the first few notes of a familiar piece of music, not demanding analysis, but inviting a settling in. Long ago, a man sat down. He was not in a temple, but under the open sky, against the trunk of a tree. He sat not to pray to something beyond, but to end a war within. He sat until he saw, with the clarity of a cloudless dawn, the fundamental architecture of peace. His students, in the years that followed, did not build statues of him. They remembered his footprints, a path worn clear through the tangled undergrowth of the human heart. These footprints are known as the Dhammapada. Tonight, we will not follow this path in its traditional, linear order. We will wander. We will visit its quiet groves and its sweeping vistas in a new sequence. Our guides will include a clockmaker in the Swiss Alps, a glassblower on the island of Murano, and the memory of a grandmother's hands shaping dough in a village in Kerala. You may drift into sleep along the way. That, too, is a form of listening. The mind, in its ancient wisdom, knows when to close its eyes and understand through the quiet pulse of the blood. All that is required is your presence. However it arrives, in this moment, it is enough. Let us begin. Imagine, if you will, a vast, empty plain under a wide sky. This plain is the raw potential of your awareness, before a single story is told upon it. Now, imagine a single figure standing on this plain, holding a staff. Wherever the figure taps the staff, a spring bubbles up from the earth. Tap in one place, and clear, sweet water flows, nourishing grasses, drawing birds. Tap in another, and the water is brackish, bitter, causing the soil to sour and crack. The Buddha said, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world." The figure with the staff is your faculty of attention. The tap is a thought. The spring that flows is the world that subsequently unfolds around you. This is not a metaphor for eventual consequence, it is the literal, moment-by-moment mechanics of your existence. The thought, "I am capable," taps one kind of spring. The thought, "I am overwhelmed," taps another. And from these springs, entirely different landscapes grow. Consider a story from a different kind of plain. In the American Southwest, there are geological formations called slot canyons. Over millions of years, a tiny, persistent trickle of water cuts a deep, narrow, winding channel through solid rock. From above, the desert appears flat, unbroken. But below the surface are these profound, sculpted cathedrals of stone, created not by a single cataclysm, but by the relentless, patient path of a single thought of water over inconceivable time. Your habitual thoughts are that trickle of water. The thought, "I'm not good enough," repeated daily, carves a deep, shadowy canyon of insecurity in your psyche. The thought, "I can learn from this," repeated just as often, sculpts a channel of resilience. The landscape of your character is not made by grand declarations, but by the quiet, persistent flow of your mental habits. If this notion of inner geology speaks to you, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It is a gentle way to mark this path in your memory, to find your way back to this space of contemplation whenever you feel lost in the desert of daily noise. Now, let us examine the quality of the water itself, the clarity of our perception. Picture two lenses. The first is a lens of old, warped glass, thick with the dust and grime of past disappointments, fears, and unexamined beliefs. Look through this lens at a sunset, and you see a blurred, ominous smear of color. Look at a friend's face, and you see a distortion, a potential threat. The lens imposes its own condition on everything. The second is a lens of perfectly polished, optical-grade crystal. It has no story of its own. It simply, faithfully transmits the light as it is. The sunset is breathtaking in its specificity. The friend's face is seen in all its unique, vulnerable humanity. The Buddha taught, if you speak or act with a confused mind, suffering follows you as the wheel follows the hoof of the ox. If you speak or act with a clear mind, happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves. The confused mind is the warped lens. It distorts reality, and we then react to our distortion as if it were truth. We argue with phantoms, flee from shadows, and cling to mirages. Suffering is the inevitable friction of living in a self-created fiction. The clear mind is the polished lens. It sees what is. An action based on what is, rather than on fear or fantasy, moves with grace. Happiness is its natural shadow, not a pursued goal, but a concomitant of accuracy. Modern neuroscience offers a parallel in the concept of cognitive bias. Our brains, to save energy, take shortcuts. The negativity bias primes us to spot potential threats, a useful survival tool for our ancestors on the savannah. But in a modern context, an untrained mind can become a warped lens, disproportionately focusing on criticism, overlooking praise, and interpreting neutral events as threats. Mindfulness practice, studies using fMRI scans show, thickens the prefrontal cortex, the brain's lens polisher. It strengthens our capacity to pause before the biased interpretation, to see the raw data of experience more clearly before the story of fear takes over. A story from the calm precision of a watchmaker's bench in Geneva. A master watchmaker was restoring a 19th-century chronometer. He worked under a bright lamp, his movements slow and deliberate. A visitor asked, "How can you stay so focused on such tiny, frustrating work for hours?" The watchmaker did not look up. He said, "I am not focused on the work. I am listening to the silence between the ticks. The work happens in that silence. If I focus on the gear, I force it. If I listen to the silence, my hand knows what to do." His mind was the polished lens. He was not imposing focus onto the task. He was allowing the truth of the mechanism to guide him. The clarity of his perception created the conditions for flawless action. But what of the storms that cloud the lens? The thoughts that feel less like a gentle trickle and more like a flash flood? The Buddha offered a law of emotional hydrology: hatred never ends through hatred. Hatred ends through love. This is an ancient, eternal law. We often misinterpret this as a command to feel warm affection for someone who has caused harm. That is not it. It is a statement of cause and effect, as reliable as the fact that water extinguishes fire. Pouring the gasoline of more hatred onto a fire of hatred only creates a larger, more dangerous blaze. The only way to stop the combustion is to stop adding fuel, to cease the internal rehearsal of grievance, the mental reenactment of the wrong. This cessation, this refusal to feed the fire, is an act of love for your own peace. It is the water. A friend who works as a mediator in tribal land disputes in Kenya once told me about a fundamental rule. When two groups are in a cycle of revenge killing, she said, you cannot begin by talking about justice, or reparations, or even the original offense. You must first broker a ceasefire on funerals. You must get both sides to agree to bury their dead without using the burial as a platform for new vows of vengeance. You stop the bleeding in the present. Only then can you clean the wound of the past. The ceasefire is not forgiveness. It is the practical, life-saving application of not adding hatred to hatred. It is the first, essential tap of the staff that calls forth a spring of possible peace. This understanding brings us, inevitably, to the daily crossroads we all face. The Buddha described two fundamental directions, two ways of being in the world. One is the path of the dandelion seed. It has no anchor. It is entirely at the mercy of the wind. The wind of sensual pleasure, of external approval, of momentary comfort. It goes wherever the strongest gust takes it. Those who live for pleasure, lacking self-control, are like a weak tree shaken by the wind. The other is the path of the taproot. Think of a wild fig tree growing from a crack in a granite cliff. Its seed germinates in a tiny pocket of dust. Instead of spreading wide, shallow roots seeking easy moisture, it sends a single, persistent root straight down, seeking the deep, hidden aquifer in the rock below. It is not swayed by surface winds because it is anchored to something profound and unseen. Those who do not chase every pleasure, who are mindful and controlled, stand firm like a mountain. A compelling illustration comes from the world of material science. Nitinol is a shape memory alloy. You can bend it, twist it, crumple it into a ball. But apply a certain amount of heat, and it will snap back to its original, programmed form with incredible force. It has an internal, encoded memory of its true shape. An untrained mind is like soft clay, taking the impression of every passing circumstance. A rude email shapes it into anger, a piece of good news shapes it into elation, a period of boredom shapes it into restlessness. A trained mind develops something like that shape memory. It can be bent by difficulty, compressed by stress, but its core programming, its commitment to clarity, compassion, and equilibrium, remains. When the heat of mindful awareness is applied, it returns to its true form. It is not rigid, but resilient. It has an inner compass, not just an outer weather vane. The process of forging this inner resilience, of growing the taproot, is what the Buddha called vigilance. But it is a vigilance devoid of tension. It is the vigilance of a parent sleeping lightly in a room adjacent to a newborn. The parent is not awake in a state of anxious scanning. They are resting in a state of open, receptive listening. They are attuned. They will hear the faintest cry, not because they are straining, but because their attention is softly focused in a particular, loving direction. Vigilance is the path to the deathless. Carelessness is the path to death. The vigilant never die. The careless are as if already dead. To be dead here is to be absent from your own life, to move through the days as a ghost of habit, rehearsing yesterday's scripts, anticipating tomorrow's fears, while the vivid, living reality of the present moment passes by unseen. The deathless is the state of being fully, vibrantly alive right now. The parent hearing that cry in the dark is, in that moment of pure, unmediated connection, touching the deathless. It is a state of awareness that exists outside the narrative of time. I witnessed this quality in the most bustling of places, a central railway station in Tokyo during rush hour. thousands of people moving in intricate, rushing streams. In the center of the main concourse stood a single station attendant, whose sole job was to help lost travelers. She stood perfectly still amidst the chaos. She did not dart her eyes around. She simply stood, present and open. When someone approached with confusion on their face, she would turn her whole body toward them, make soft eye contact, and listen completely. The moment the traveler walked away, oriented, she would return to her still, open posture. She was not overwhelmed by the flood, she was the still point in the turning world. Her vigilance was not a fight against the chaos, it was a profound, silent offering of orientation within it. She had built an island of calm attention in the middle of the human river. Through effort, vigilance, restraint, and self-control, the Buddha said, the wise one makes an island no flood can overwhelm. Your flood may be a tide of responsibilities, a wave of grief, or the constant drip of low-grade anxiety. Your island is constructed not of dramatic gestures, but of these small, conscious returns. Returning to the sensation of your feet on the floor, the coolness of air in your nostrils, the specific weight of a cup in your hand. Each return is a load-bearing pillar sunk deep into the bedrock of the present. And what is this self we are to control? What is the material of the island? It is the mind, elusive, powerful, often unruly. The Buddha reached for many images to convey its nature. The mind is restless, unsteady, it wanders where it wishes. To discipline it is good. A disciplined mind brings happiness. Hard to perceive, exceedingly subtle, the mind wanders where it desires. The wise one should guard it. A guarded mind brings happiness. Note the verbs, discipline, guard. Not annihilate, not imprison. We are not trying to create a void. We are cultivating a relationship with a force of nature. I am reminded of the traditional Breton fishermen of France, who used to train with a unique tool, a wooden bowl filled to the brim with water. The apprentice would have to walk across the deck of a rocking boat without spilling a single drop. He could not stare at the water, trying to control its sloshing with his eyes. That would guarantee a spill. He had to feel the roll of the ship in his knees and hips, allowing his body to become so attuned to the movement of the boat that he moved with it, keeping the bowl, his center, level. His attention was on his own balance within the movement, not on trying to stop the ocean. Your mind is that bowl of water. The world is the rocking boat. Meditation is not about staring at your thoughts, trying to force them to be still. That leads to spillage, frustration, distraction, a sense of failure. It is about developing a profound inner balance, a somatic awareness, so that when the waves of thought, emotion, and sensory input rock you, you can move with them while keeping your essential center, your aware presence, level and undisturbed. A guarded mind is a balanced mind, not a still one. Within this cultivated balance, we discover the most important territory of all, the gap. Between the lightning flash of a thought and the thunderclap of an action, there is a moment of silent, luminous possibility. The thought arises, this is unfair. In the gap, you can notice, a feeling of injustice is present. The thought is a weather event in the sky of your mind, you are the sky, not the weather. The thought arises. I must have that. In the gap, you can inquire, or what? This fissure of awareness is where your freedom is born. It is the moment the watchmaker listens to the silence between ticks. It is the moment the station attendant turns her full, calm attention to the lost traveler. Knowing this body is fragile, make your mind a fortress. Guard it with the weapon of wisdom. Protect what you have won. And what have you won? This very awareness of the gap. This capacity to see the thought as a thought, the feeling as a feeling. This is your fortress gate. It is your only true possession. He made it even more intimate. A well-directed mind does you more good than your mother, your father, or any other relative. They give you life, love, a foundation. But they cannot direct your mind for you. That final, irrevocable sovereignty, and the beautiful, terrifying responsibility that comes with it, rests with you alone. It is the source of your world and the key to its transformation. Let us follow this idea of world building to a place where the inner and outer landscapes merge, the Lascaux caves in France. Over 17,000 years ago, in utter darkness, guided by the flickering light of animal fat lamps, humans painted breathtakingly vital images of bison, horses, and stags on the cave walls. They did not paint on a blank, flat surface. They incorporated the natural contours of the rock. A bulge became a bison's shoulder, a fissure suggested a leg, a recess became a deep cave in the painting itself. They did not impose their vision upon the world, they collaborated with it, seeing the potential image within the existing form. A well-directed mind is like this. It does not impose a rigid story of how things should be onto the raw material of your life, the bulge of an obstacle, the fissure of a loss, the recess of uncertainty. Instead, with the gentle light of awareness, it sees the potential within those very contours. The obstacle becomes the shoulder of your strength. The loss becomes the line that defines a new depth. You are not a painter on a blank canvas, but an artist in collaboration with the living rock of reality. This collaborative vision is the greater good no one can give you. It is the ultimate refuge. We have seen the power of the inner landscape, shaped by the persistent tap of thought. Now, we stand at a fork in the path. It is not a fork we encounter once in a lifetime, but one we meet in 1,000 subtle forms, every single day. The Buddha described these two ways with the clarity of a cartographer. One path is broad, well-trodden, and brightly lit with the neon signs of immediate gratification. It is the path of the asava, the outflows, the leaks. Here, one lives for pleasure, where the mind is a cup with a crack in the bottom. No matter how much sweet drink is poured in, praise, possession, sensual delight, it never feels full, only perpetually thirsty, constantly seeking the next pour. Those who live for pleasure, whose minds are unsteady, who ignore moderation, are like a weak tree shaken by the wind. The other path is narrower, quieter, marked not by signs but by the quality of the air. It is the path of sannyama, restraint, harmony. Here, one does not chase every flicker of desire, but cultivates a mind that is collected, content with simplicity. Those who do not chase every pleasure, whose minds are in harmony, who practice moderation, stand firm like a mountain. Let us visualize this through a story from the world of sound engineering. In a recording studio, there is a crucial device called a compressor. Its job is to manage dynamic range, the difference between the loudest and softest sounds. An untrained life is like a recording without compression. The pleasures are jarringly loud, the thrill of a purchase, the high of praise, and the pains or boredom are crushing in their silent void. The experience is exhausting, a roller coaster of peaks and valleys. The practice of moderation and restraint is like applying a gentle, skillful compression. It doesn't eliminate the dynamics of life, the joys are still sweet, the sorrows still felt. But it reduces the extreme, draining swings. The loud impulses are gently attenuated, the silent voids are brought up to a level where they can be heard as peace, not as emptiness. The resulting track of your life is not flat, but balanced, listenable, full of richness without being fatiguing. The mountain stands firm not because it feels nothing, but because its experience is integrated, not fragmented. This balanced path is not one of grim denial. It is the path of the connoisseur versus the glutton. The glutton devours the entire cake, experiences a moment of intense pleasure, followed by nausea and regret. The connoisseur takes a single, perfect slice. She savors each bite, appreciates the texture, the balance of flavors, and feels deeply satisfied, nourished, without a hint of sickness. She enjoys the cake infinitely more because her engagement is mindful, not desperate. The glutton is enslaved by the craving, the connoisseur is in a relationship of appreciation with the experience. A powerful cultural reference comes from the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection, impermanence, and simplicity. It is not found in the flawless, gilded vase, but in the cracked, repaired ceramic bowl, where the mended seam of gold lacquer, kintsugi, tells the story of its breakage and becomes its most beautiful feature. The path of harmony embraces the cracks, the limitations, the natural fading. It finds depth and beauty in the very things the path of pleasure tries to hide or eliminate: age, flaw, transience. The mountain is beautiful not for being smooth and unblemished, but for its weathered, complex, enduring presence. How do we learn to walk this narrower path? The Buddha's answer is vigilance. But we must understand the texture of this vigilance. It is not the vigilance of a soldier on night watch, peering into darkness for enemies. That vigilance is born of fear and tightens the chest. It is the vigilance of a master vintner walking the rows of his vineyard at dusk. He is not at war with his grapes. He is attending. He notices the slight pallor on a leaf that suggests a need for water, the perfect blush on a cluster that indicates it is ready, the first sign of a fungus that must be gently addressed. His attention is a form of love, specific, knowledgeable, and utterly relaxed because it is born of intimacy, not threat. Vigilance is the path to the deathless. Carelessness is the path to death. The vigilant never die. The careless are as if already dead. To be dead is to be on autopilot, to move through the miracle of your senses, the taste of coffee, the sound of rain, the warmth of a hug, without ever truly registering them. You are a ghost inhabiting a body. The deathless is the fully alive state of registering. The vintner, feeling the dew on the leaf and knowing its meaning, is in that deathless moment. It is a state of pure participation. I saw this embodied in a most unexpected guide, a safety instructor for high-voltage power line workers. His job was to teach men to work calmly and precisely while standing on cables carrying hundreds of thousands of volts. A moment of panic, a slip, meant death. He told me, "We do not teach them to be careful." That word creates tension, and tension causes mistakes. We teach them the choreography. Every move is a deliberate, practiced dance. When you are in the dance, there is no you being careful and a danger out there. There is only the next step in the sequence. Your awareness is not a narrow beam of fear, it is an open field in which the entire dance unfolds. His vigilance was a state of fluent, embodied knowing. He had built an island of choreographed awareness in a sea of lethal voltage. Through effort, vigilance, restraint, and self-control, the Buddha said, the wise one makes an island no flood can overwhelm. You build this island before the floodwaters rise. You build it in the quiet morning, by drinking your water slowly and feeling its coolness. You build it in the evening, by listening to a friend's story without composing your reply. You build it in the frustrating moment, by feeling the heat of anger in your body without letting it command your tongue. These are the stones. The flood of crisis, when it comes, will test the construction, but it will not wash you away if you have laid the stones with the mortar of present moment attention. And what is the nature of this self we are to control? The mind, again. But now we see it not just as water in a bowl, but as something with intention. The Buddha used another potent metaphor: the mind is restless, hard to guard, hard to control. The wise one straightens it as a fletcher straightens an arrow. A fletcher does not snap a warped arrow into alignment. They apply heat, gentle pressure, and a skilled eye, working with the wood's grain to guide it back to true. They respect the arrow's purpose, to fly straight, and help it remember its own nature. So it is with the mind. Our practice is not a violent suppression of thought. It is the application of the steady heat of mindfulness and the gentle pressure of patience, guiding the mind back to its innate capacity for clarity and focus. We are not creating something new, we are straightening what has become bent by habit. A story from the art of traditional bow-making among the Yakut people of Siberia. The master bowyer selects a piece of wood not for its straightness, but for its potential strength and flexibility. He then begins a months-long process of tillering, slowly bending the wood, inch by inch, over a form, often with the application of steam. He never forces it beyond its capacity to bend without breaking. He listens to the creaks and groans of the fibers. The goal is not a rigid stick, but a weapon with a deep, resilient curve, a curve that stores immense energy and releases it with precision. A mind that has never been tillered by the gentle, persistent pressure of discipline is like a straight, dry branch. It may look correct, but it is brittle and useless under tension. A mind that has been skillfully worked through patient practice becomes resilient, flexible, and powerful. It can be drawn back by life's difficulties and release its energy as focused, compassionate action, not as splintering frustration. This process reveals, over and over, that critical gap. The space between stimulus and response. The thought arises, a hot, sharp arrow, they disrespected me. In the gap, the Fletcher's eye sees, the arrow of perceived disrespect has been loosed. You do not have to knock it on your own bowstring and fire it back. You can simply watch it arc and fall to the ground. The thought arises, a sweet, seductive whisper, just this once, it won't matter. In the gap, the bowyer feels the strain in the wood. Is this a bend that stores energy, or one that will cause a fatal crack? That moment of sensing is freedom. Guard the mind, the teaching says. Guarding does not mean building a wall. It means maintaining the clear, open space of the gap. It means being the aware sky, not clenching around the passing storm cloud. He then makes a statement that can sound shocking in its self-reliance: a well-directed mind does you more good than your mother, your father, or any other relative. They give you life, love, a name, a history. But they cannot do the work of directing your mind in this moment. That final, intimate authority rests with the one who hears these words. Your parents may have given you a map, but you are the one who must choose each step. That sovereignty is the source of both your greatest power and your most profound responsibility. It is the root from which either suffering or freedom grows. Let us follow this route to a place where it becomes tangible. The ancient, interconnected root system of a pando, a quaking aspen grove in Utah. What appears to be a forest of thousands of individual trees is, in fact, a single organism. All the trunks spring from one massive, subterranean root system, sharing water, nutrients, and information. A drought in one area is mitigated by resources sent from another. A disease attacking one trunk can be walled off by the communal immune response of the root network. Your well-directed mind is like this. When you tap into its deep, quiet clarity, you are not connecting to an isolated, lonely self. You are plugging into a network of awareness that transcends your personal story. The nutrients of peace from a moment of stillness can be sent to nourish a moment of future stress. The disease of a harmful impulse can be isolated and contained before it infects your speech or action. You realize you are not just a single, vulnerable tree, but part of a resilient, intelligent, living system. This connection is the greater good that surpasses any external inheritance. It is a refuge woven into the fabric of being itself. From this place of connected refuge, we can look at our actions in the world not as burdens, but as natural expressions, like leaves turning toward the sun. The Buddha said, just as from a heap of flowers many garlands can be made, so with this human life, many good deeds can be done. You are the florist of your existence. Each choice is a blossom. Some you weave into garlands for immediate offering, a kind word today, a held door, a moment of patience. These adorn the present with beauty. Others you let go to seed, the commitment to honesty that becomes your reputation, the skill you nurture that becomes your service, the forgiveness you offer that heals a relationship across years. These will bloom in futures you may never walk through, in gardens you will never see. He contrasts this with a haunting image. He who gathers only the flowers of sensual pleasure, his mind distracted, death carries him away as a great flood sweeps away a sleeping village. The sleeper is the one who mistakes the plucked flower for the living plant. They amass bouquets of experience, thrills, acquisitions, compliments, asleep to the fact that these cut stems are already dying in their grasp. When the inevitable flood of time rises, they are swept away, clutching only fistfuls of wilted petals. See the butterfly, the teaching implies. It flits from bloom to bloom, taking nectar, pollinating as it goes, never harming the flower, never trying to possess the garden. The wise person moves through the world like this. They partake of life's nectar, art, nature, love, achievement, without clinging to the specific form it takes, without demanding that any particular flower never wither. The flower fulfills its purpose. The butterfly remains unburdened, essential to the life of the whole garden. This is non-attachment, a participatory dance, not a possessive grab. We have mapped the two paths and begun the practice of vigilance, the gentle attending that builds an island. Now we turn to the inhabitant of that island, the mind itself. Not as an abstract concept, but as the living, breathing, sometimes turbulent force that is your constant companion. The Buddha did not describe the mind as a blank slate. He described it as a wild creature. The mind is restless, hard to guard, hard to control. It lands wherever it wishes. The wise one should train it. A trained mind brings happiness. Training. Not breaking. Not caging. Consider the difference between a wild horse and a warhorse. The wild horse is all raw power and fear, beautiful but dangerous, useful to no one, not even itself. The warhorse, through patient, consistent training, has integrated its power with direction. Its strength is harnessed, its spirit is focused, it becomes a magnificent partner capable of great tasks. The mind's energy is not the problem, its untamed, scattered nature is. A story from the remote fjords of Norway. There, farmers use a unique method to manage their herds on steep, mountainous pastures. They employ a busetter, a caller. This person does not herd the sheep with dogs or fences. Instead, they learn a specific, melodic call. Each morning and evening, they stand in the pasture and sing this call. Over time, the sheep learn to associate the call with safety and feeding. When the caller sings, the sheep willingly gather. The farmer works with the flock's nature, using consistent, gentle guidance to create cooperation where force would only cause panic and scattering. Your untamed mind is like that flock on a mountain, scattered, grazing on every passing worry or fantasy. The practice of mindfulness is your call. It is not a shout of repression. It is a consistent, gentle note of return. You sit, and you call your attention back to the breath, to a sound, to a sensation. Not once, but 1,000 times. You are not chasing thoughts with a dog of willpower. You are establishing a reliable, safe signal that says, here. Gather here. Gradually, the mind learns to respond. It learns that focus is not a prison, but a nourishing pasture. This training reveals the mind's most deceptive quality, its identification with every thought. We think, I am angry, and become the anger. We think, I am worthless, and become the story of worthlessness. The mind sticks to thoughts like Velcro. Modern psychology calls this fusion. Cognitive diffusion, a core process in acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, is the practice of creating space between ourselves and our thoughts. Instead of, I am a failure, we learn to say, I am having the thought that I am a failure. This tiny grammatical shift is a seismic psychological event. It moves us from being the storm to being the weather observer. The Buddha taught this diffusion 2 millennia ago. He pointed to the gap. Between the thought and the one who thinks it, there is a silent witness. That witness is your point of freedom. To understand this gap, let's travel to a silent place. The anechoic chamber at Orfield Laboratories in Minnesota. It is a room so absorbent of sound that it holds the Guinness World Record for the quietest place on Earth. In it, you hear the sounds of your own body, your heartbeat, your blood rushing, the high-pitched tone of your nervous system. External noise is eliminated, revealing the constant, internal symphony you usually ignore. Meditation is like entering an anechoic chamber for the mind. We withdraw attention from the external noise of worries, plans, and sensory distractions. What is revealed? The internal symphony of thoughts, sensations, and emotions. But more importantly, it reveals the space in which this symphony plays. You are not the heartbeat, you are the awareness that hears it. You are not the anxious thought, you are the silence that contains it. The gap is not a void, it is the fundamental, aware ground of your being. I learned this not in a lab, but from a taxi driver in Cairo. Stuck in infamous traffic, horns blaring, heat shimmering, I was a knot of frustration. He was serene, humming along to the radio. I asked how he stayed so calm. He pointed to a small, clear plastic box fixed to his dashboard. Inside was a single, perfect, tiny model of a dhow sailing ship, suspended as if on a still sea. When the chaos is outside, he said, I look at my quiet sea inside. The traffic is the wind. It blows. But my boat does not sink. It is just sailing. For him, the gap was not a theory. It was a miniature sea on his dashboard, a tangible anchor to the inner silence that no external storm could touch. Guard the mind, the Buddha said. This guarding is the maintenance of that inner sea. It is noticing when the winds of provocation are blowing and choosing to return your gaze to the still water, to the faithful, unsinkable boat of your awareness. From this guarded, spacious mind arises a quality the world desperately misunderstands: equanimity. The wise are unshaken by praise or blame, as a solid rock is unshaken by the wind. This is not indifference. Indifference is cold, dull, disconnected. Equanimity is warm, vivid, and profoundly connected. It is the difference between a stagnant pond and the deep, clear center of a lake. The pond is unmoved because nothing is moving in it, it is dead. The lake center is unmoved because it is so deep that surface storms, the praise and blame, the success and failure, cannot stir its depths. It feels the ripples, but its essential nature remains calm, clear, and reflective. The rock feels the wind, knows its temperature and force, but its integrity is not compromised. A scientific parallel exists in the concept of homeostasis in complex systems. A healthy human body maintains a constant internal temperature despite wild swings in the external environment. It doesn't do this by ignoring the cold or heat, it has sophisticated feedback mechanisms, shivering, sweating, that actively work to restore balance. Equanimity is the psychic homeostasis of the wise mind. It feels the heat of anger and engages the cooling mechanism of mindful pause. It feels the chill of depression and engages the warming mechanism of compassionate self-regard. It is not a lack of feeling, but a dynamic, intelligent stability. The Buddha described this mature state: good people give up clinging to everything. They don't chatter about sensual cravings. Touched by happiness or pain, the wise show no elation or depression. Note, touched by. They are touched. They feel. The happiness is felt as happiness, not as a trophy to be mounted. The pain is felt as pain, not as an identity to be worn like a crown of thorns. The feeling arises, is known, and passes through the spacious sky of awareness without leaving a permanent stain. You can grieve a loss without becoming the grieving one. You can celebrate a win without becoming the winner. You are the sky, not the weather. This leads to a freedom in action that is often mistaken for passivity. The wise don't seek children, wealth, or power through wrongdoing. They are virtuous, discerning, righteous. The emphasis is on through wrongdoing. A sage may have a family, resources, and influence. But these are not built on a foundation of exploitation, deceit, or harm. Their power is clean. Their wealth does not carry the silent interest of others' suffering. Their legacy is built with stones of integrity, not bricks of remorse. Think of a principle in architecture: form follows function. A bridge is beautiful when its structure perfectly expresses its purpose of spanning a gap. There is no ornament for ornament's sake, its integrity is its beauty. A life lived with right action, right speech, and right livelihood has this aesthetic. It is not adorned with the cheap ornaments of pretense or status. Its beauty is its functional integrity, its ability to connect, to support, to shelter without collapse. This is virtue not as a rule, but as an elegant engineering of the soul. Yet, the Buddha observed that few choose this path of integrity. Few cross to the far shore. Most people just run up and down this near shore. The near shore is the familiar, frantic ground of I, me, mine. We sprint its length, chasing pleasures, fleeing pains, building sandcastles of identity that are washed away by the next tide, only to rebuild them again. We think this running is life. The far shore is the restful continent of freedom from that entire exhausting cycle. It seems distant, shrouded in mist. But the boat, the disciplined, mindful awareness, is pulled up on the sand at your feet. The choice to step into it is yours, in this very moment. Leaving the dark path, cultivating the bright, leaving home for the homeless state, seeking joy where pleasure is hard to find. Homeless is the state of inward non-attachment. It means your sense of security is not mortgaged to a particular job, relationship, or self-image. You carry your shelter within. The well-trained, guarded mind. You find joy not in the easy, distracting thrill, but in the profound, quiet peace that comes when you stop running from yourself. This joy is hard to find only because it is not an object to be found, but a background condition to be revealed when the seeking ceases. What does this revealed joy look like in a living being? The mindful are always striving. They don't delight in settling down. Like swans leaving a lake, they abandon home after home. This is not restlessness. It is the freedom of the migratory bird, obedient to an inner, seasonal truth. The swan does not leave because the lake is poisoned or empty. It leaves because the light has changed, the air has cooled, and a deep, ancient knowing says, it is time. To stay would be to violate its nature. The sage doesn't cling to circumstances, even beautiful ones. They are responsive to the truth of each new moment, willing to lift off from comfort when integrity calls. Those who have no accumulation, who eat with full understanding, whose realm is the freedom of emptiness, the signless, their path is hard to trace, like birds in the sky. Birds leave no lasting tracks. When you stop accumulating the heavy cargo of my story, my achievement, my wound, your passage through life becomes weightless. You act, you contribute, you love, but you do not leave behind the scar of a grasping ego. You are like a helpful wind that moves the leaves and is gone. The sky holds no record of your flight, but the leaves have been stirred, the seeds dispersed. Even the gods envy the one whose senses are controlled like well-trained horses, who is free from pride, free from corruption. Free from corruption, this is crucial. It does not mean never making a mistake. It means free from the inner rot, the festering, secret places of resentment, envy, and self-deception. That hidden decay is the true poison. A mind free of it is clear medicine for itself and the world. Steady as the earth, a pillar, clear as a lake without mud. For such a one, there is no more wandering. Peaceful in mind, peaceful in speech, peaceful in action, freed by right knowledge, completely calm. This is the portrait of the completed work. The trained mind. The guarded heart. The island, now a continent. It is not a state of inert bliss, but of dynamic, unshakable peace. And the bridge to this peace, the Buddha continually reminds us, is built with the simplest, most potent material, conscious attention to the present. Better than 1,000 useless words is one word that brings peace. Better than 1,000 useless verses is one verse that brings peace. In an age of endless commentary, opinion, and noise, this is a radical filter. Does it bring peace? Does it settle the dust? One sentence of genuine understanding, one moment of silent companionship, carries more weight than a library of clever debate. Then he makes a valuation that turns worldly glory on its head. If someone conquered 1,000 men in battle 1,000 times, and another conquered only themselves, this second victory is the greatest. Imagine the most celebrated general, his name echoing through history. The Buddha says, that conquest is ephemeral, built on the shifting sands of others' weakness. The victory over one's own greed, hatred, and delusion is built on the bedrock of self-mastery. Its battlefield is the quiet heart at 3 a.m., choosing not to spiral into despair. Its heroism is invisible, its trophies are inner landmarks of freedom. This victory cannot be undone by any external force. Not even gods, demons, or death can turn that victory into defeat. Why? Because it depends on nothing outside of your own awareness and choice. It is yours, irrevocably. Month after month, someone might make offerings for 100 years. But to honor a self-conquered person for even a moment is worth more. Why? Because that person is a living lighthouse. They are proof that the far shore exists, that the voyage can be made. To honor them is not to worship, but to align your own inner compass with the truth they embody. It is to choose, in that moment, to look toward the light. We have trained the mind, found the gap, and glimpsed the sage's freedom. Now we must tend to the soil in which all of this grows, the field of our actions. For every thought that arises, every word spoken, every deed done, is a seed planted. And the harvest is not a matter of chance, but of inevitable, natural law. The Buddha taught this with the simplicity of a farmer: if you do something harmful, don't repeat it. Don't take pleasure in it. The accumulation of harmful actions leads to pain. If you do something good, repeat it. Take joy in it. The accumulation of good actions leads to happiness. Imagine a vast, silent warehouse. Every action you take, from the grand to the barely perceptible, enters this warehouse as a single grain of rice. Harmful actions are grains of a bitter, poisonous variety. Good actions are grains of a nourishing, sweet kind. You are the sole warehouse keeper, adding grains day and night. The quality of your life, the very taste of your experience, is determined by which pile you draw from to make your daily meal. You cannot draw sweetness from the bitter pile. The law is impersonal and precise. A story from the intricate world of archival science. In the National Archives of a country, every document, every decision, is preserved. A researcher centuries from now could trace the exact chain of memos that led to a policy, or the personal letter that revealed a hidden motive. Nothing is truly lost, it is merely stored, awaiting the right query. Our mental and moral archives are far more efficient. Every unkind word, every cut corner, every act of courage or cowardice is filed away in the deep archives of consciousness. They form the precedent library for our future decisions. We are constantly citing our own past actions to justify our present ones. The practice of mindfulness is like hiring a meticulous archivist for your soul, one who brings each document into the light of awareness before you sign it into law. Hasten to do good, the Buddha urged. Restrain your mind from evil. Whoever is slow to do good, their mind delights in evil. Here, evil, Papa, is not a cosmic force. It is that which causes suffering, that which harms. Good, Panna, is that which fosters well-being. It is a functional, cause-and-effect definition. The call to hasten is critical. We are masters of postponement. We will be kinder tomorrow, more patient next week, begin our practice when life is less busy. The Buddha's arithmetic of time, which we touched on earlier, declares this a fatal error. Better than 100 years lived viciously, unmeditatively, is one day lived in virtue and deep contemplation. He repeats this formula like a drumbeat, breaking our trance of assumed longevity. One fully conscious, ethically coherent day contains more life, more reality, more meaning, than a decade of sleepwalking. Because in that day, you touch the timeless. You step out of the stream of automatic karma and taste the bank of freedom. Even if you slip back in, you can never again believe the stream is the only reality. This brings us to the heart of karma, stripped of superstition. Karma is not fate, not punishment, not a cosmic scoreboard kept by a divine accountant. It is the natural law of moral causality, as reliable as physics. If you plant a nettle seed in your garden, you will get a nettle. The soil does not judge you, it simply responds to the seed's nature. If you speak with contempt, you create an atmosphere of hostility. That atmosphere is your harvest. If you act with generosity, you create a field of trust. That field is your harvest. Don't dismiss wrongdoing, thinking, it's a small thing, it won't affect me. Just as a water jug fills with drops, so a fool fills with evil, little by little. Don't dismiss good deeds, thinking, it's a small thing, it won't matter. Just as a water jug fills with drops, so the wise fill with good, little by little. The power is in the accumulation, the compounding interest of habit. We are not shaped by our occasional grand gestures, but by our repeated, microscopic choices. I think of the broken windows theory in criminology, not as a social policy, but as a metaphor for the mind. The theory suggests that visible signs of disorder, a broken window left unrepaired, invite further disorder. One small, uncorrected fault signals that no one cares, leading to more serious problems. In the mind, one tolerated instance of petty resentment, it's just a little grudge, one unexamined jealous thought, it's only human, is a broken window. It signals to the deeper psyche that integrity is optional. More windows are soon broken, larger resentments, more sustained jealousies. The inner neighborhood decays. Vigilance is the constant, gentle repair work of the attentive heart. Yet, the consequences are often delayed, and this delay is the great seducer. Someone might do wrong and not feel the result immediately, like fresh milk not curdling at once. But it follows them, burning like a fire covered with ashes. We commit the harmful act. Nothing bad happens. We feel a secret thrill of having gotten away with it. We do it again. Still, no apparent consequence. The fire of future suffering is smoldering beneath the ash of our inattention. We pile more fuel on it, more deceit, more neglect, more harshness. Then, a wind of circumstance fans the ashes, and our life is suddenly ablaze with crisis, and we cry, "Why is this happening to me?" The fire was laid and tended by our own hands, log by log, over years. Now we must turn and look with compassion at the one who tends these hidden fires, the fool. The Buddha's descriptions of foolishness, bala, are not insults, but clinical diagnoses of a state of suffering. Long is the night to the sleepless. Long is the league to the weary. Long is the cycle of birth and death to fools who do not know the true law. Foolishness is a fog of misperception. It makes a single, sleepless hour feel like an eternity. It makes a mile of road feel like 100. The fool's entire existence is laborious, slow, and fraught with unnecessary pain because they are lost in a labyrinth of their own confused thinking. I recall a documentary about a man who spent a fortune and 15 years searching for buried treasure on a remote Pacific island, based on a map he was sure was authentic. He dug vast pits, damaged the ecosystem, alienated his family. Near the end, a historian gently showed him conclusive evidence the map was a famous 20th century forgery, a practical joke. The man stared at the evidence, then at his ruined hands, and said, "I can't stop now. The treasure must be deeper." The fool is not lacking in effort, but in the willingness to see evidence that contradicts their cherished narrative. Their suffering is the friction between reality and their refusal to see it. The Buddha pinpointed the core delusion. "These are my sons, this is my wealth," with such thoughts the fool is tormented. They do not even own themselves. How much less sons or wealth? The torment is in the possessive pronoun, my. The attempt to claim ownership over what is inherently processional, children who become adults, wealth that flows, a body that ages, a mind that changes. The fool's agony is the constant tension between the desire to possess and the fact of impermanence. Yet, the exit door is always unlocked. If a fool recognizes their foolishness, they are wise, at least in that. But a fool who thinks themselves wise, that one is truly a fool. The beginning of wisdom is the humble, courageous confession, I have been mistaken. This is the first, firm step off the treadmill. The most entrenched foolishness is the armor of certainty, the total identification with one's own opinions. Even if a fool lives with a wise person their whole life, he observed, they no more perceive the truth than a spoon perceives the taste of soup. You can be immersed in an environment of wisdom, surrounded by books, teachers, sacred art, and remain utterly untouched if your mind is closed, if you are the utensil and not the consumer. The spoon is essential for delivery, but it never knows the flavor, is never nourished. Are you a vehicle, or are you the one who eats and is transformed? The fool, the Buddha warned, becomes their own architect of misery. The fool who imagines they are wise lives with themselves as their enemy, doing evil that bears bitter fruit. Watch the pattern unfold. A small lie to avoid a difficult conversation. It provides relief. Lying becomes a strategy. Then a reflex. Eventually, a personality is constructed upon a foundation of fabrication. The bitter fruit is a life lived in a hall of mirrors, where every relationship is filtered through the fear of exposure. Or, using anger as a tool to get things done. It yields quick compliance. The bitter fruit is a landscape of burned bridges and a heart hardened into permanent combat readiness. An action is not good if you have to regret it later, if its fruit is tears and remorse. An action is good if you don't regret it later, if its fruit is joy and happiness. A profoundly practical, personal litmus test. Not, what will people think, but, how will I feel when I lay my head down at night? Not, is this pleasurable now, but, will this lead to peace? The fool is seduced by the immediate sugar. The wise invest in the long-term nourishment. Evil seems sweet to the fool until it ripens. When it ripens, the fool tastes bitterness. Like overindulging in rich food, the pleasure is in the moment of eating. The sickness, the regret, the sluggishness are the inevitable, delayed harvest. What, then, is the mark of the one moving from foolishness to wisdom? It is a shift from blame to responsibility, from externalizing to internalizing. The Buddha taught a powerful, self-reliant truth, by oneself is evil done, by oneself is one defiled. By oneself is evil left undone, by oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity depend on oneself. No one can purify another. This is the ultimate empowerment and the ultimate sobering truth. You cannot hire a proxy to do your inner work. Not a therapist, not a priest, not a life coach. They can offer tools, support, and perspective, but the labor of purification, of watching your thoughts, restraining your speech, choosing the kind action, is yours alone. Your peace is your project. Your suffering is your responsibility. This realization is the end of the victimhood that characterizes foolishness and the beginning of genuine agency. Easy to do are things that are bad, not good for you. Hard to do are things that are good, beneficial. Why? Because the untrained mind seeks immediate ease. The trained mind seeks lasting good. This is the neuroplasticity of virtue, reaffirmed. The path of least resistance leads to the swamp of regret. The path of discipline leads to the high ground of peace. The mind must be trained, like a muscle, to prefer the long-term good, which initially feels like hardship, over the short-term pleasure, which initially feels like ease. Finally, the Buddha offers a vision of the world seen through wise eyes. Come, look at this world. Like a decorated royal carriage. Fools are entranced by it. The wise see it for what it is. The carriage is magnificent, gilded, ornate, impressive. It carries the king. But it is still a vehicle. It wears out. It breaks down. It is headed to the same destination as the woodcutter's cart. The fool is mesmerized by the glittering appearance. The wise appreciate the craftsmanship but understand its transient, functional nature. They enjoy the ride without mistaking the carriage for their true home. This clear seeing, of the law of seeds, the end of foolishness, the nature of the world, is the foundation upon which the highest freedom is built. It is the clearing of the fog, the repair of the windows, the careful selection of seeds for the garden of your life. We have tended the garden of action and cleared the fog of foolishness. Now, we must look directly at the nature of the soil itself, the very substance of our experience. The Buddha did not point toward a philosophy, but toward three inescapable facts, facts so fundamental they are called the marks of existence. To see them is to see the bedrock of reality, and in that seeing, the entire architecture of suffering begins to lose its hold. The first mark is anicca, impermanence. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is not a poetic observation about autumn leaves. It is a radical, moment-to-moment truth. Everything that has a beginning has an ending. Every sensation, every thought, every feeling, every relationship, every identity, every galaxy. It is all in a state of flux, of arising and passing. We know this intellectually, yet we live in profound resistance to it. We want the pleasant to stay, the unpleasant to go, and the neutral to be interesting. We are at war with the most basic law of the universe. Consider a story from the edge of the observable world, the work of astrophysicists studying cosmic background radiation. They are, in effect, listening to the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, the echo of the universe's birth. That echo is cooling. It is fading. The universe itself is in a state of constant, irreversible change, expanding, cooling, dying stars giving birth to new elements. Our entire cosmic home is a testament to anicca. The ache we feel when a beautiful moment ends, the anxiety we feel about an uncertain future, is the pain of a tiny, conscious part of the universe bumping up against its own fundamental law. Our resistance is like a wave trying to stop the ocean from moving. To understand this mark intimately, we can turn to the art of ukiyo-e, the pictures of the floating world, from Edo period Japan. The artists depicted kabuki actors, beautiful courtesans, scenes of daily life. But the term, floating world, ukiyo, originally carried a Buddhist meaning, the sorrowful world of impermanence. It was a poignant acknowledgement that this world of beauty and pleasure is transient, floating, dreamlike. The artists captured a fleeting moment, the precise angle of a fan, the fold of a kimono in motion, knowing full well its perfection was evanescent. Their art was not a denial of impermanence, but a breathtaking homage to it. To see the world as ukiyo-e is to see its heartbreaking, beautiful fragility in every frame. The second mark is dukkha, often translated as suffering, but closer to unsatisfactoriness or stress. All conditioned things are dukkha. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the Buddha's most misunderstood teaching. He is not saying life is nothing but misery. He is stating a conditional truth. To the extent that we cling to what is impermanent, suffering arises. Dukkha is the friction, the anxiety, the subtle disappointment that permeates even our happiest moments because, deep down, we know they cannot last. It is the splinter in the mind, the sense that, this is not quite enough, or, this will not last. It is the fundamental disease of trying to find permanent satisfaction in an impermanent flow. A modern analogy can be found in network theory and the concept of latency. In a digital network, latency is the delay between a request and a response. Even on the fastest connection, there is a tiny, irreducible lag. Dukkha is the psychic latency between our desire for things to be a certain way and the way they actually are. We desire security, and reality offers constant change. We desire permanence in relationships, and people grow and die. The gap between the wish and the fact creates a low-grade buzz of existential friction. Enlightenment is not the end of experience, but the end of that latency, the complete acceptance of the data stream of reality without a buffering demand for it to be different. I witnessed a profound acceptance of dukkha in a hospice nurse in Scotland. She spoke of her work not as tragedy, but as sacred geography. People in their final days, she said, often stop fighting the current. The pain is still there, the sadness is still there, but the struggle against it, that falls away. And in that space, the most ordinary things become miraculous. The taste of water, the sound of a bird, the pressure of a hand. They are not happy, in the cheerful sense. But they are at peace with the unhappiness. They have stopped arguing with dukkha. And in that ceasefire, a kind of grace appears. She described the end of suffering not as the absence of pain, but as the end of the war with pain. The third mark is anatta, non-self. All phenomena are anatta, not self. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the most subtle and revolutionary of the marks. It is the insight that there is no permanent, unchanging, independent self to be found within the flow of experience. What we call I is a dynamic, interdependent process, a constellation of changing body parts, fleeting thoughts, shifting emotions, inherited memories, and cultural conditioning. There is a river of experience, but if you look for a separate entity called the river owner, apart from the water, the banks, and the flow, you cannot find it. This is not nihilism. It is liberation. Think of a whirlpool in a river. It has a distinct, recognizable form. It performs and function, swirling leaves and debris. You can point to it and say, that is a whirlpool. But the whirlpool has no independent existence. It is entirely dependent on the flow of water, the shape of the riverbed, the current. If you try to scoop the whirlpool out of the river and save it, you get a handful of water. The form was real, but its substance was never separate. The self is like that whirlpool, a temporary, functional pattern within the larger flow of life, samsara. Clinging to it as a solid, separate thing is the source of our deepest anxiety, our need to defend, to promote, to possess. A powerful scientific parallel exists in biology. The human body replaces about 330 billion cells every day. The entire lining of your gut is renewed every few days, your skin every month, your skeleton every decade. You are, physically, a process of constant replacement. There is no cell that has been with you from birth. The pattern persists, the process continues, but the material is entirely exchanged. Where, then, is the solid, permanent you in this body? Anatta invites us to see this not as a loss, but as a participation in a flowing, intelligent, impersonal miracle. A story from the craft of river fishing in the Mekong Delta. Fishermen there use a technique with enormous, conical nets that are lowered into the strong current. They do not chase fish. They lower the net into the flow and wait. The net is not the fish. The current is not the fish. But in the right relationship between the open net and the moving water, fish are caught. The wise fisherman understands he is not an independent actor imposing his will on the river. He is a participant in a system, he knows the currents, the tides, the habits of the fish. His self as a successful fisherman exists only in relationship to the river. He is an event within the flow, not a commander of it. Seeing anatta is like this, realizing you are not a separate captain steering a ship called a body, but you are the sailing itself. A dynamic, interdependent event occurring within a vast ocean of cause and condition. Seeing these three marks together, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self, is the pivotal insight. It is like finally understanding the rules of the game you have been playing blindfolded. You see that clinging to the impermanent, anicca, is the cause of the suffering, dukkha. And you see that the you, who is clinging, anatta, is itself part of the impermanent flow, not a solid owner who can ever truly possess anything. This seeing is not depressing, it is the great relief. It is like realizing you have been carrying a heavy vase full of water, terrified to spill a drop, and then seeing that both the vase and the water are, and always have been, part of the same endless, supporting ocean. You can finally set the burden down. The Buddha said, "One who sees the arising of the world sees the cessation of the world." To see how the world of your suffering is built, brick by brick of clinging to the impermanent, is to see how it can be deconstructed. When the clinging ceases, the world of suffering ceases. What remains is not annihilation, but the ocean itself, the deathless, unconditioned reality that was always there, obscured by our frantic project of building and defending a separate self. This is the wisdom that turns one away from suffering. It is not an intellectual understanding, but a visceral, transformative seeing. It is the moment the dreamer knows they are dreaming, and the nightmare loses its power. Having seen the marks of existence, the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and selfless nature of all conditioned things, a profound reorientation occurs. The compass of the heart shifts. The pursuits that once seemed so vital, the accumulation of status, the defense of identity, the feverish chase for lasting pleasure, begin to lose their magnetic pull. One is no longer trying to build a permanent mansion on the shifting sands of samsara. Instead, one learns the art of setting up a skillful camp, secure, peaceful, but always with the understanding of its temporary nature. This is the essence of the homeless state. The Buddha described this shift, leaving the dark path, cultivating the bright, leaving home for the homeless state, seeking joy where pleasure is hard to find. Homeless, anagarya, does not mean being destitute or without shelter. It means being inwardly unbound from the fixed ideas of my home, my role, my story. It is the psychological state of non-abiding. Your security is no longer mortgaged to a particular job title, relationship status, or even a fixed self-concept. You carry your sanctuary within you, the well-trained, guarded mind. The joy you then seek is not the easy, sensory pleasure, sukha. That depends on favorable conditions, but the deeper happiness, santi, of peace that arises when the inner war ceases. This joy is hard to find only because it is not an object to be found out there, but the quiet background of awareness revealed when the frantic search stops. Consider the life of the Arctic tern. This bird makes the longest migration of any animal, flying from its Arctic breeding grounds to the Antarctic and back again every year, a round trip of nearly 50,000 miles. It does not own a nest in either place. Its home is the rhythm of light, the pull of the pole, the pathway of the wind. It is a creature of profound belonging, yet it belongs to the journey itself, not to a fixed point on the map. The sage has this quality. They are deeply engaged, yet inwardly migratory. They can love a person, commit to a task, appreciate a place, all while holding these attachments lightly, knowing they are way stations on a longer journey of awakening. Their nest is built in the present moment of right understanding. A story from the nomadic herders of Mongolia. For the Dukha people, reindeer are not livestock, they are partners. The herders do not own the reindeer in a Western sense. They have a relationship of mutual care. The herders guide the herds to the best grazing grounds with the seasons. The reindeer provide milk, transport, and companionship. Their home is not a stationary house, but the seasonal route, odor. And the felt tent, gur, that can be packed and moved in an hour. Their identity is not tied to a plot of land, but to a relationship with the land and the animals moving across it. This embodies the homeless state, a deep, responsible connection without possessive clinging, a life in harmonious flow with impermanence. The mindful are always striving. They don't delight in settling down. Like swans leaving a lake, they abandon home after home. This is not restless discontent. It is the freedom of the swan that feels the shift in the season and obeys the ancient call to move. It does not leave because the lake is toxic, but because to stay would be to deny its nature. The sage doesn't cling to circumstances, even comfortable ones. When a situation has served its purpose for growth, or when staying would require a compromise of integrity, they have the inner freedom to lift off. Their delight is in alignment with truth, not in the comfort of stagnation. What does a life of non-abiding look like in the modern world? It is not necessarily about giving away all possessions. It is about the quality of relationship with what you have. Think of a masterful theater director. She is deeply engaged with the production, the sets, the scripts, the actors, the lighting. She cares passionately. Yet, she knows it is a play. On opening night, she does not cling to the set, begging the actors to stay in character forever. She knows the nature of the theater. The curtain will fall, the set will be struck, the actors will move on to other roles. Her joy is in the integrity of the performance itself, in the truth conveyed in that temporary, magical space. She is homeless in the play, yet fully at home in the art of theater. A sage in the world is like this, fully participating in life's roles, as parent, professional, citizen, while knowing their constructed, impermanent nature. This knowledge liberates their participation from anxiety and turns it into a kind of sacred play. The Buddha used one of his most beautiful images to describe the traceless path of such a one, those who have no accumulation, who eat with full understanding, whose realm is the freedom of emptiness, the signless, their path is hard to trace, like birds in the sky. Birds leave no footprints in the air. You cannot reconstruct their precise journey. When you stop accumulating the heavy cargo of my story, my achievement, my wound, your passage through life becomes weightless. You act, you contribute, you help, you create. But you do not leave behind the sticky residue of a grasping ego, the long shadow of, I did this. Your actions are like helpful weather, a rain that nourishes, a wind that clears, and then the sky is simply sky again. The effect remains, but the actor is dissolved in the action. This is the essence of anatta in motion. There is doing, but no separate doer accumulating merit or blame. There is simply the appropriate response arising from wisdom and compassion, meeting the need of the moment, and then passing away. I witnessed this quality in a retired schoolteacher in a small Italian village. She had taught generations of children. Her small apartment was filled not with trophies, but with letters, photos, and crafts from former students. She had no children of her own. When I asked her about her legacy, she looked puzzled. Legacy, she said. I just opened the window every day. She saw herself not as a sculptor shaping minds, but as someone who simply provided light and air, the conditions for growth. She had accumulated no sense of herself as a great teacher. Her path was like a bird's. The children had flown, strengthened by the wind she helped provide, and her joy was in their flight, not in being remembered as the source of the wind. Even the gods envy the one whose senses are controlled like well-trained horses, who is free from pride, free from corruption. Free from corruption, anasava, this is the critical fruit of the homeless state. It means free from the inner rot of hidden agendas, festering resentments, and the slow poison of self-deception. When you are not building a permanent statue of yourself, you have no need for the cheap paint of pretense or the hidden scaffolding of deceit. Your inner ecology is clean. A mind free of this corruption is clear, like a mountain spring. It needs no addition to be wholesome, its nature is purity. This person, the Buddha said, becomes a refuge in themselves, steady as the earth, a pillar, clear as a lake without mud. For such a one, there is no more wandering. Peaceful in mind, peaceful in speech, peaceful in action, freed by right knowledge, completely calm. This is the portrait of one who has completed the journey from householder to homeless, from fool to sage. Their stability is not the rigidity of a stone, but the steadfastness of the earth itself, alive, supportive, unmoved by surface weather. Their clarity is not the cold clarity of ice, but the receptive clarity of still water, reflecting things as they are. The frantic wandering, samsara, has ended because they have found the still center within the turning world. They are at home everywhere because they are bound nowhere. This is the promise of the path, not as a distant heaven, but as an available orientation here and now. It begins with the simple, revolutionary act of looking at your next thought, your next desire, your next annoyance, and whispering to yourself, this too is impermanent. Clinging to this brings stress. And this feeling of, me, it's happening to, is also part of the flow. In that whisper, you take your first step onto the bird's path, leaving no trace, heading for the open sky. On the traceless path of the sage, guided by the marks of existence, what is the atmosphere of the heart? If we are not building a monument of self, what are we cultivating? The Buddha's answer points not to a list of commandments, but to a set of inherent qualities that bloom when the weeds of craving and aversion are cleared. These are the Brahmaviharas. The sublime abidings, or the highest virtues. They are not emotions we fabricate, but capacities we uncover. The first is metta, loving kindness. This is not sentimental affection or conditional love. It is the unwavering, benevolent wish for all beings to be happy and free from suffering. It is the sun, shining equally on the flower and the weed, without preference or expectation of return. Let us live happily, without hatred, among those who hate. Among hateful people, let us dwell without hatred. This is the ultimate test of metta. It is easy to feel kindly toward those who are kind to us. Metta asks us to generate a warmth of heart even in the presence of hostility, not by approving of harmful actions, but by refusing to let another's hatred define the climate of our own heart. We become like a clear, deep pool. Someone can throw mud into it, the mud will swirl and eventually settle, but the water's essential nature. Clear, cool, cleansing, remains unchanged. The mud does not become the water. A story from the world of mycology illustrates this resilience. There is a fungus known as Pineaphora albabadia that grows on the walls of uranium-contaminated mines. Instead of being poisoned by the heavy metals, it incorporates them into its own structure, transforming toxic particles into a stable, crystalline form within its own cells. It does not fight the poison, it transmutes it, creating beauty from toxicity. A heart trained in metta performs a similar alchemy. The toxic energy of another's anger or ill will, when met not with counter-hatred but with steady, non-reactive benevolence, can be transformed. It is not internalized as pain, but met with a boundary of compassion that says, "Your suffering does not have to become mine. I wish for your freedom from it." The second is karuna, compassion. This is the heart's natural, trembling response to the suffering of others. It is not pity, which looks down from a place of separation. True compassion feels the shared vulnerability of all living things. It is the mother's instinctive reach toward her crying child, extended to the whole world. All beings tremble before danger. All fear death. Putting yourself in the place of another, you should not kill, nor cause killing. Karuna arises from this visceral recognition of shared fear. When you see the spider you are about to crush not as a pest, but as a creature clinging to its one precious life with the same desperate intensity as you, the foot stops in midair. Compassion is the bridge built on shared mortality. I think of a program in a maximum security prison in New York, where volunteers bring in rescued, traumatized dogs for the inmates to train. The men, many of whom have never known healthy affection, are tasked with caring for a creature more frightened and broken than they are. In soothing the dog's tremors, they unknowingly soothe their own. In earning the trust of a being that has every reason to fear them, they witness the possibility of trust within themselves. Their compassion for the dog becomes the first crack of light into their own hardened hearts. This is karuna in action. The recognition of suffering in another becoming the gateway to healing in oneself. The third is mudita, sympathetic joy. This is the antidote to the poison of envy, one of the most corrosive and hidden of mental states. It is the ability to rejoice in the good fortune, success, and happiness of others, as if it were your own. In a culture steeped in comparison and scarcity, mudita is a radical act. It declares that joy is not a finite pie, another's slice does not diminish yours. In fact, their joy can nourish you if you allow it. It is the pleasure you feel when you see a colleague receive a promotion you wanted, and your first, genuine thought is, how wonderful for them. It cleanses the heart of the bitter sediment of resentment. Consider the tradition of communal barn raising in Amish and Mennonite communities. When a family's barn burns down, the entire community gathers. They do not come out of obligation, but with a spirit of collective purpose and even celebration. There is music, food, and a palpable joy in the shared labor. The new barn is not seen as the Joneses' bigger barn, it is seen as our community's resilience, our shared capacity for care. The joy of the receiving family is amplified by the mudita of the dozens of families who helped. Their individual good fortune becomes a communal feast of gladness. The fourth is upekkha, equanimity. This is the balanced, steady heart. It is not detachment or indifference, but the profound peace that comes from understanding the law of karma and the marks of existence. It is the ability to remain calm and clear in the face of the 8 worldly winds, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. The wise are unshaken by praise or blame, as a solid rock is unshaken by the wind. Upekkha is that rock. It feels the wind. The cool breeze of praise, the biting gale of blame, but its core integrity is undisturbed. It understands that these winds are impersonal forces, the natural weather of a world of conditions. It does not mean you do not prefer kindness over cruelty. It means your sense of worth is not contingent on which way the wind blows. A powerful model for Upekkha can be found in the design principles of a suspension bridge, like the Golden Gate. The bridge is built to sway. If it were rigid, it would shatter under the immense forces of wind, traffic, and seismic activity. Its strength lies in its flexible, balanced suspension. The towers stand firm, the cables provide dynamic tension, and the deck is allowed to move within a designed range. The equanimous mind is like this. It is not rigidly fixed against the winds of change. It has deep pillars of ethical integrity, sila, the flexible cables of mindfulness, sati, and a deck of awareness that can sway with the impact of life's events without collapsing. It feels the storms fully, but does not identify as the storm. These 4, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, are to be cultivated, radiated, as the texts say, in all directions. They are the natural fragrance of a heart that is no longer preoccupied with its own narrow story. They are the guarding of the heart the Buddha spoke of. We guard it not by building walls, but by cultivating these beautiful, expansive gardens within, so that there is no room for the weeds of ill will, cruelty, envy, or agitation to take root. Conquer anger with non-anger. Conquer evil with good. Conquer stinginess with generosity. Conquer falsehood with truth. This is the active expression of the guarded heart. It is a strategy of transformation, not suppression. You do not conquer anger by wrestling it into a corner. You dissolve it by flooding the space with its opposite, patient, non-reactive awareness, non-anger. You do not fight darkness with more darkness, you light a lamp. The guarded heart is not a fortress under siege, it is a lighthouse, whose very nature is to shine, regardless of the surrounding darkness. This cultivation leads to the highest form of strength. The Buddha said, patience is the highest austerity. Nirvana is the highest goal, say the awakened. One who injures others is no contemplative. One who oppresses others is no renunciate. The greatest sacrifice, the toughest discipline, is not fasting or sleep deprivation. It is the patience to endure insult without retaliation, to bear injustice without bitterness, to wait for understanding without forcing it. This patience is the ultimate expression of a heart guarded by metta and upekkha. It is the strength of water, which wears away stone not by force, but by persistent, gentle presence. A heart cultivated in this way becomes what the world most needs, not another opinion, not another critic, but a living source of unshakable peace and boundless goodwill. It is the final, beautiful preparation for understanding the ultimate goal. A solitary bird may find its way across a continent, but it is the flock that defines the wind patterns, shares the thermal currents, and signals the changing seasons. The journey of awakening, while ultimately an inner one, is not meant to be walked in utter isolation. The Buddha, after his enlightenment, did not remain in the forest. He founded the Sangha, a community of those who walked the path together. This was not an afterthought, it was a vital limb of the teaching. If you find a wise companion, a righteous friend who leads a good life, you should wander with them, overcoming all dangers, pleased and mindful. The wise companion is not someone who has all the answers, but someone whose life is oriented toward truth, whose actions align with their words, and whose presence reflects a measure of the peace you seek. They are a living mirror, showing you not who you should be, but reflecting back the possibility of what you could be. Their very existence is encouragement. A profound example of this exists in the world of long-distance ocean rowing. Individuals or pairs attempt to cross entire oceans in tiny, human-powered vessels. The physical feat is staggering, but the psychological challenge is greater. Solo rowers report that their greatest peril is not storms or sharks, but the utter dissolution of perspective that comes from weeks of seeing nothing but water and sky. A partner in a two-person boat serves a crucial function beyond sharing the labor. They provide an external reference point for reality. When one descends into despair or paranoia, the other can say, "Look, the sky is clearing to the east," or simply, "I am here with you." The Sangha serves this purpose on the spiritual voyage. When your inner world is a storm of doubt, the presence of others on the path reminds you that the shore exists, that the stars are still there behind the clouds. But if you don't find a wise companion, a righteous friend who leads a good life, then wander alone like a king who has abandoned his conquered kingdom, like a great elephant alone in the elephant forest. This is the other side of the coin. If the only companions available drag you into gossip, resentment, and heedlessness, then noble solitude is vastly preferable to corrupt company. The king who has abandoned his kingdom is a powerful image. He walks away not as a beggar, but as one who has voluntarily relinquished the burdens of rule for the freedom of the open road. His solitude is one of sovereignty, not loneliness. The great elephant in the forest is majestic, self-sufficient, at home in its own nature. Better to be a whole, integrated being alone than a fragmented one lost in a crowd that celebrates fragmentation. This community of the wise exists not to create dogma, but to uphold the framework for practice. The Noble Eightfold Path. This is not a ladder with 8 rungs, but a wheel with 8 spokes. Each spoke supports the whole, weaken one, and the wheel wobbles. They are grouped into 3 essential trainings: wisdom, panna, ethical conduct, sila, and mental discipline, samadhi. The wisdom group begins with right view. This is not believing a set of doctrines, but seeing things as they actually are, through the lens of the 4 noble truths and the 3 marks of existence. It is the understanding that shapes all that follows. A builder with a faulty blueprint will construct a faulty house, no matter how good his materials or tools. Right intention flows from this view. It is the resolve, the inner compass setting. Intention toward renunciation, letting go of clinging, intention toward goodwill, metta, and intention toward harmlessness, ahimsa. Your view shapes your aim determines your direction. The ethical conduct group is how this wisdom manifests in the world. Right speech is first, abstaining from lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. Speech is action made of vibration. It creates climates. A harsh word can lower the temperature of a room for hours. A truthful, kind word can heal an invisible wound. Right action follows, abstaining from taking life, taking what is not given, and sexual misconduct. It is the foundation of trust in society and self-respect within. Right livelihood extends this integrity into how we support ourselves. Earning a living in ways that cause harm or exploit others, trading in weapons, living beings, meat, poisons, or intoxicants, creates a fundamental dissonance. We cannot spend our days creating suffering and expect our nights to be peaceful. Our work must be an expression of our values, or it will become a source of perpetual, low-grade inner conflict. The mental discipline group is the training ground. Right effort is the balanced, persistent application of energy, to prevent unwholesome states from arising, to abandon those that have arisen, to cultivate wholesome states not yet present, and to maintain those that are. It is the work of the gardener, vigilant and tender. Right mindfulness, sati, is the heart of the practice. It is the clear, non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. The famous Satipatthana Sutta outlines the four foundations. Mindfulness of body, feelings, mind, and mental objects. It is not about having an empty mind, but about knowing what is in the mind, and how it is. It is the flashlight in the dark basement of our psyche. Right concentration, samadhi, is the collected, unified, steady mind that arises from this mindfulness. It is the laser, as opposed to the scattered light of ordinary attention. Through concentration, the mind becomes a powerful instrument for seeing through the illusions of permanence and self. Together, this path is a complete training manual for a human being. It addresses how we see, how we aim, how we communicate, how we act, how we work, how we apply ourselves, how we pay attention, and how we focus. It is not a linear progression, but an integrated development. As ethical conduct calms the mind, concentration deepens. As concentration deepens, wisdom becomes clearer. As wisdom becomes clearer, ethical conduct becomes more intuitive and effortless. The Sangha is the crucible where this path is walked, tested, and embodied. It is the flock that knows the way across the open ocean of samsara, calling you back to course when you drift, sharing the warmth of practice when you grow cold, and celebrating each other's sightings of the far shore. We have the map, the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, let us walk its middle section with care, for this is where the wisdom of the heart meets the grit of the world. The three spokes of ethical conduct, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, are not mere rules. They are the practice of ahimsa, non-harming, made manifest. They are how we sculpt our corner of the world with the chisel of awareness, rather than the hammer of heedlessness. Right speech is often the first casualty of a troubled mind, and its repair is the first sign of healing. The Buddha outlined it with stark clarity: abstain from false speech, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. This is not about policing every word, but about understanding speech as a force of creation or destruction. Words are not just sounds, they are spells. They cast visions into the minds of others. A lie creates a false world that others must then navigate, often at great cost. Divisive speech, "Did you hear what she said about you?" builds invisible walls between hearts. Harsh speech is a form of violence that leaves no visible bruise but can shatter an inner landscape. Idle chatter is the static that drowns out the signal of meaningful connection. Consider the technology of noise-canceling headphones. They work by generating a sound wave that is the exact mirror image, the anti-wave, of the ambient noise. When the two waves meet, they cancel each other out, creating silence. Right speech is the practice of generating the anti-wave to the cacophony of harmful communication. When tempted by gossip, you offer a kind word about the person instead. When anger pushes for a cutting remark, you offer silence, the active, potent silence that cancels the noise of conflict. You are not just avoiding harm, you are actively creating the conditions for clarity and peace. A story from the tradition of the Navajo Peacemaker Court. In this system of justice, the goal is not to assign blame and punishment, but to restore harmony, Hazo. The peacemaker brings the conflicting parties together and guides a talking circle. The primary rule is that you may only speak from your own experience, using I statements. You cannot speak for the other person or assume their intent. The process is slow, deliberate, and focused on healing the relational web that has been torn. This is right speech institutionalized, speech whose sole purpose is to restore integrity, to weave back together what divisive or harsh words have torn apart. Right action extends this principle of non-harm from words to deeds. The basic precepts are clear: not killing, not stealing, not engaging in sexual misconduct. But the spirit of right action goes deeper. It is the positive cultivation of actions that are peaceful, honest, and respectful. It is replacing the fist with an open hand, the taking with a giving, exploitation with mutuality. Think of the principle of leave no trace in wilderness ethics. Hikers are taught to pass through natural areas without altering them, so that the next person can experience the same pristine beauty. Right action is leave no trace applied to the human world. Can you move through your day, through your relationships, through your work, without leaving a trail of resentment, broken trust, or exploited vulnerability? Can your actions be so clean, so considerate, that they do not burden the psychic environment for others? This is the practice of leaving every interaction, every space, more whole than you found it. Right livelihood asks us to extend this integrity to the very means by which we sustain our life. The Buddha specifically advised against trades in weapons, living beings, including slavery and animal slaughter, meat, poisons, and intoxicants. These are livelihoods built on a foundation of harm, fear, or delusion. In the modern world, the lines can be blurrier. Right livelihood becomes a continuous inquiry: does my work cause unnecessary suffering? Does it deceive people? Does it promote greed, hatred, or confusion? Does it leave me feeling fragmented, having to check my values at the office door. A job is right livelihood not just by its title, but by the quality of attention and intention you bring to it. A cashier can practice right livelihood by bringing kindness and presence to each transaction. A CEO can violate it by fostering a culture of fear and exploitation, even in a respectable industry. I am reminded of the shokunin spirit in Japanese craftsmanship. A shokunin is not just a technician. They are a bearer of a social and spiritual mission. Their work is an offering to society, an act of preserving and elevating beauty and function. The finish on the back of a drawer, unseen, is as perfect as the front, because the shokunin's integrity is not for show. They see their livelihood as a path of character development and service. This is the essence of right livelihood. Your work becomes a field for practicing generosity, honesty, and care, contributing to the world's repair, not its degradation. Underpinning all of this is right effort. This is the engine, the sustained application of energy. The Buddha described it with the precision of a physician prescribing a regimen. 1. To prevent unwholesome states from arising. 2. To abandon unwholesome states that have arisen. 3. To cultivate wholesome states not yet arisen. 4. To maintain wholesome states that have arisen. This is not about grim striving. It is about skillful effort. It is the effort of a sailor trimming the sails, not fighting the wind, but working with it to move forward. Preventing anger from arising might mean getting adequate rest or avoiding toxic media. Abandoning anger that has arisen might mean taking a mindful walk instead of firing off an email. Cultivating compassion might mean deliberately spending time with someone who is suffering. Maintaining compassion might mean protecting your time for meditation and reflection. Right effort understands the law of inertia in the mind. An object at rest, a habit of laziness, tends to stay at rest. An object in motion, a habit of generosity, tends to stay in motion. Our effort is the initial, conscious push that overcomes the inertia of our old patterns and sets new, healthier ones in motion. It is the daily decision to pick up the meditation cushion, to pause before speaking, to choose the ethical option even when it's less convenient. Mastering these three, speech, action, and livelihood, fueled by balanced effort, creates a life of profound outer integrity. This integrity is not a cage, but the strongest possible foundation. It is the cleared, level ground upon which the temple of deep meditation and liberating wisdom can be safely built. A mind riddled with regret over harmful speech, guilt over dishonest action, or shame over exploitative work cannot settle into the profound peace of concentration. Ethical mastery is the essential preparation of the soil. With our ethical ground cleared and stable, we turn inward to the most subtle and powerful tools of transformation, the mastery of our own attention. This is the domain of the final two path factors. Right mindfulness and right concentration, the twin pillars of mental discipline, samadhi. Here, we move from managing our world to knowing our mind, and from knowing to unifying it into an instrument of penetrating insight. Right mindfulness, sati, is the cornerstone. It is often misunderstood as thinking about the present. It is not thinking about. It is the direct, non-judgmental awareness of the present. It is the clear, steady light of attention that illuminates whatever is occurring in the field of experience, body, feelings, mind, and phenomena, as it is. The Buddha's instructions in the Satipatthana Sutta are remarkably concrete. He doesn't say, be spiritual. He says, when walking, know I am walking. When standing, know I am standing. When feeling pleasure, know pleasure is present. When a thought of greed arises, know a thought of greed has arisen. This is radical objectivity toward our own subjectivity. A powerful analogy comes from the world of aviation, the scan. A pilot in flight does not stare fixedly at a single instrument. They practice a systematic scan: altitude, airspeed, attitude, heading, engine temperature. They note each reading without clinging to it or rejecting it, then move to the next, maintaining a continuous, panoramic awareness of the aircraft's state. Mindfulness is the inner scan. You note breath, entering, sensation, pressure in the knee, feeling, neutral, mind, planning, sound, distant siren. You are the pilot of your consciousness, maintaining situational awareness so you don't crash into the mountain of reactive emotion or get lost in the clouds of fantasy. Right mindfulness has a specific function: it creates the gap. By simply noting anger, or aching, you insert a sliver of space between the raw experience and your identification with it. In that space, choice becomes possible. You are no longer being angry, you are knowing anger. This knowing is your freedom. Right concentration, samadhi, is the natural deepening of this mindful awareness. If mindfulness is the clear, wide light, concentration is that same light focused through a magnifying glass. It is the collected, unified, steady, one-pointed mind. The Buddha described successive stages of concentration, jhanas, where the mind settles from initial applied thought, through joy and bliss, into a profound, serene equanimity. This is not a trance or a blank stupor. It is a state of heightened, vibrant clarity where the mind's energy, normally scattered across 1,000 objects, is gathered into a single, luminous point. It is like the difference between a candle flame in a drafty room, flickering, unstable, casting weak shadows, and a powerful, focused lantern beam that cuts through the dark to reveal what is truly there. The relationship between the two is symbiotic. Mindfulness is the guardian of concentration. It is what notices when the mind has wandered from its object, the breath, a phrase, a visual symbol, and gently leads it back. Concentration, in turn, empowers mindfulness. A deeply concentrated mind is not easily pulled off course, its mindfulness becomes effortlessly sustained. They support each other like the two wings of a bird. A story from the craft of watchmaking, specifically the assembly of a tourbillon. A tourbillon is a complex mechanism that counters the effects of gravity on a watch's accuracy. Assembling one requires a microscope, tiny tools, and a state of mind that is the epitome of samadhi. The watchmaker must enter a bubble of total concentration. A single tremor, a single stray thought, can send a microscopic screw flying, ruining hours of work. The world outside the microscope ceases to exist. There is only the dance of gear and spring. This state is not forced, it is a graceful entry into a flow of profound unity with the task. The watchmaker emerges not drained, but refreshed, having been in a state of pure, undiluted attention. This is the practical, worldly power of right concentration. It unifies our fractured energy, making us capable of great precision and depth, whether in crafting a watch or navigating a difficult conversation. Through the sustained practice of mindfulness and concentration, the mind becomes purified, bright, and malleable. It is no longer a frantic servant to every whim of sense desire. It becomes a fit instrument for the final, liberating task, vipassana, insight. With a concentrated mind, you can direct that laser beam of awareness onto the very nature of experience itself. You watch sensations arise and pass with shocking speed. You see feelings bloom and wither like time-lapse flowers. You observe thoughts linking together in chains of associative gossip. And in this watching, you see directly, experientially, the three marks, impermanence, anicca, in every flicker, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. In the subtle tension of clinging to any of it, and non-self, anatta, in the sheer absence of a permanent observer behind the observation. This is not philosophy. This is direct perception. It is like finally seeing the pixels on a screen, the illusion of a solid picture breaks down, and you are left with the truth of its constructed, fleeting nature. This insight, repeated and deepened, wears away the deep-seated habits of craving and aversion at their root. The mastery of mind, therefore, is not an escape from life. It is the ultimate engagement with it. It is learning to meet a moment of pain with the full, clear strength of concentrated awareness, so that it is known simply as a constellation of changing sensations, not as my catastrophe. It is learning to meet a moment of great joy with the same clear awareness, so it is known as a beautiful, passing pattern, not as a possession to be clung to. This balanced, penetrating awareness is the highest form of respect we can pay to the reality of our lives. We have traveled from the first tap of thought that shapes a world, through the ethical mastery of action, to the serene heights of a concentrated mind. We have practiced seeing. Now, we arrive at the vista that seeing reveals, the end of the path, the final goal, the deathless refuge. The Buddha gave it a name, Nibbana, in Pali, or Nirvana, in Sanskrit. No word has been more misunderstood. It is not a heavenly paradise of clouds and harps. It is not annihilation into nothingness. It is, rather, the ultimate psychological and existential resolution. Literally, Nibbana means extinguishing, like a fire going out. But what is extinguished? Not the person, not the life force. It is the fires of greed, raga, hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. It is the cessation of the fever of craving, tanha. The very builder of the house that the Buddha addressed upon his awakening. When these fires are extinguished, what remains is not cold ashes, but a cool, clear, peaceful space. It is the unobstructed presence of awareness itself, freed from the compulsive fuel of wanting and not wanting. There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. If there were not that unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, there would be no escape from the born, the become, the made, the conditioned. But because there is an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, there is an escape. This is perhaps the most important statement the Buddha ever made. He points to a fundamental reality that is not subject to the laws of arising and passing away, anicca, not constructed, dukkha, and not defined by self or other, anatta. This unconditioned is not a thing to be grasped. It is the very nature of awareness when it is not entangled in conditioned phenomena. It is like the sky, clouds, thoughts, feelings, form and dissolve within it, but the sky itself is not born with the cloud, does not become the cloud, and is not stained when the cloud passes. Nibbana is the recognition of yourself as the sky, not the weather. Consider a metaphor from fluid dynamics, laminar flow. In a turbulent river, water swirls chaotically, creating eddies and resistance. But under certain conditions, the flow can become laminar, smooth, parallel layers moving in the same direction with minimal friction. The water is still water, the river is still flowing, but the chaotic, wasteful turbulence has ceased. Nibbana is like the mind entering a state of perfect laminar flow with reality. The energy of consciousness is no longer wasted in the turbulent inner conflict of craving and aversion. It flows smoothly, clearly, meeting experience without friction. The river is at peace with its own current. This state is not passive, it is the height of responsiveness. A mind free of greed, hatred, and delusion responds to the world with perfect accuracy and compassion. It is like a still pond that reflects the moon perfectly. A turbulent pond gives only a broken, distorted reflection. The still pond, Nibbana, is not doing anything to the moon, it is simply allowing the moon to be seen as it is. The awakened mind allows reality to be known as it is, and from that flawless knowing, action flows that is inherently wise and kind. The Buddha described one who has realized this as having done what was to be done. The metaphor of the journey is complete. You have reached the far shore. The raft of the teaching can be set down. What remains? The sage, free from craving, without grasping, skilled in language and its interpretation, understanding the order of letters, which come first and which after, that one bears the final body, and is called the Great Wise One. To bear the final body means this will be the last lifetime propelled by the ignorant winds of karma. The seeds of suffering are no longer being sown. The sage lives out the remainder of their life with a mind that is unshaken, free from sorrow, free from stain, at peace. This is the image of the arahant, the fully awakened one. But is this goal relevant for us, here, now, in the middle of our messy lives? Absolutely. Nibbana has a mundane, accessible dimension, the momentary cessation of craving. Every time you pause in a moment of irritation and feel it dissolve without acting on it, you taste a droplet of Nibbana. Every time you experience a desire and simply let it be without needing to satisfy it, you touch the coolness of non-craving. Every moment of pure, selfless appreciation, for a sunset, for a piece of music, for another person, where the I vanishes into the experience, is a flicker of the unconditioned. These are not the full-blown, permanent liberation of an arahant, but they are its authentic foreshadowing. They prove the goal is not a myth, but a potential inherent in consciousness itself. The ultimate refuge, then, is not in a god, a doctrine, or a person. It is in this deathless potential within. The Buddha's final words drive this home: be islands unto yourselves, monks. Be your own refuge. Have no other refuge. Let the Dhamma be your island, let the Dhamma be your refuge. Have no other refuge. This is the pinnacle of the teaching's empowerment and its terrifying responsibility. You cannot find peace by clinging to the Buddha. You must become the Buddha, the awakened one. By walking the path he mapped. Your refuge is the clarity of your own mind, the integrity of your own virtue, the stability of your own concentration. The Dhamma is not a book, it is the truth of how things are, and you can verify it in your own experience. This realization transforms the meaning of life and death. For one who has uprooted craving, death is not a threat to a cherished self, because the illusion of a solid, separate self has been seen through. It is simply the final shedding of an old, worn-out body, like discarding a set of clothes. As the Buddha said of the Tathagata, the one who has thus gone deep, immeasurable, hard to fathom is the Tathagata like the great ocean. He arises does not apply, he does not arise does not apply. He is freed from all categories of existence and non-existence. He has returned to the ocean, from which the wave of his individual life arose. The journey ends where it began. In your own mind, but a mind now seen for what it always was, vast, clear, and free. The goal was never somewhere else. It was always the seeing of what is here. And so we arrive here, at the end of our spoken journey, yet at the very beginning of your own. These words, these stories, these ancient footprints, are now a part of the atmosphere of your mind. They have been offered not as doctrine to be believed, but as tools to be used, as mirrors to be looked into, as old maps to be compared with the territory of your own life. The Buddha's final teaching was one of relentless encouragement and profound trust in the human capacity for awakening. He did not ask for monuments. He asked for practice. Strive on with diligence, were among his last words. Not with anxiety, but with the steady, persistent care of a gardener. Now, the path becomes personal. It condenses from philosophy into daily ritual, into micro-choices. It is the ritual of the morning pause. Before reaching for the phone, before the tsunami of the day's demands, you find just 30 seconds. You feel the weight of your body on the bed, the air moving in and out of your nostrils, the faint sounds of the world waking up. You plant one stone on your island. It is the micro-choice in a heated discussion. You feel the heat in your chest, the sharp word forming on your tongue. And in that gap, that sacred, spacious gap we've spoken of, you choose silence instead. Or you choose a question, help me understand. You practice right speech as a martial art of peace. It is the redefinition of your work. You look at your daily tasks not as a means to an end, but as the very field of your cultivation. Can this email be an exercise in clarity and kindness? Can this meeting be a practice of deep listening? Can this difficult project be a training in patience and right effort? Your livelihood becomes your practice ground. It is the gentle vigilance with your own heart. When you notice the cold contraction of envy, you don't berate yourself. You note, envy is here, and you consciously call to mind the practice of mudita, sympathetic joy. You sincerely wish well for the person you envied. You perform an inner alchemy, transforming poison into medicine. These are not grand gestures. They are the humble, powerful stitches with which a life of integrity is sewn, day by day. The Buddha did not praise those who performed great austerities in the forest but neglected their own bitter hearts. He praised the one who, in the marketplace of daily life, maintains a heart of goodwill, a mind of clarity, and hands that do no harm. Just as the great ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so too, this Dhamma and discipline has one taste, the taste of freedom. All these teachings, the ethics, the mindfulness, the wisdom, have a single purpose, to lead you to freedom. The freedom that is not an escape from life, but a full, fearless immersion in it. The freedom to feel joy without clinging, grief without drowning, pleasure without addiction, and pain without resentment. It is the freedom of the open sky mind, no longer confused with the clouds that pass through it. Your journey from here is yours alone, yet you are never truly walking it by yourself. You walk with the countless ones who have walked it before, the monks in ancient forests, the grandmothers in quiet kitchens, the artists, the scientists, the caregivers, all who have sought truth in the texture of the real. You walk with the silent presence of your own innate wisdom, which has been listening all along. So, as we prepare to close, let this not be an end, but a transition. From listening to living. From theory to experiment. Take one thing. Just one. Perhaps it is the resolve to pause for 3 breaths before reacting in anger. Perhaps it is the intention to offer one genuine compliment each day. Perhaps it is the commitment to sit in silence for 5 minutes each morning, just listening to the world. Let that one thing be your raft. Climb onto it and begin to cross. The path is always here, beneath your feet, in this very breath. The teachings are always available, in the patience of a tree, in the flow of a river, in the resilience of your own heart after a failure. If anything you have heard in this long journey has resonated, has felt like a reminder of something you already knew deep down, you are invited to leave a single word in the comments below. A word for the next traveler who finds their way here, weary or seeking. Let it be a marker on the path. A stone in their river. Let it whisper, you are not alone. And now, as we part ways in this digital space, may these traditional blessings, offered for over 2 millennia, find a home in you. May you be safe. May you be protected from inner and outer harm. May you be healthy. May you be strong in body and clear in mind. May you be happy. May your heart be light, open to the joys of life. May you live with ease. May you meet the inevitable difficulties of life with a steady and peaceful heart. May all beings, in all directions, known and unknown, near and far, May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings find the end of craving. May all beings know the peace that does not depend on anything. The bell of Monk's temple has sounded. The teaching is complete. Walk gently. Be kind. Pay attention. The path is right where you are.